Welcome to Creepy, the best horror storyteller on YouTube.
Part 1.
I still remember the day I met him. It was a sunny afternoon in June, and I was walking home from the library with a stack of books in my arms. I was a journalism student at the University of California, Berkeley, and I was working on a project about serial killers. I had always been fascinated by the dark side of human nature, and I wanted to understand what drove these monsters to commit such horrific crimes. As I was crossing the street, I saw a man standing on the sidewalk, holding a camera. He had blonde hair, blue eyes, and a friendly smile. He looked like a typical tourist, except for the fact that he was wearing a trench coat in the middle of summer. He caught my eye and waved at me. "Excuse me, miss," he said in a charming accent. "Do you mind if I take your picture?" I was a bit surprised, but I didn't see any harm in it. I figured he was just a harmless hobbyist who liked to photograph strangers. I smiled and nodded. "Sure, go ahead," I said. He lifted his camera and snapped a few shots of me. He thanked me and handed me a card. "My name is Lucas," he said. "I'm a photographer from Germany. I'm traveling around the country, taking pictures of people for my portfolio. Here's my website if you want to see more of my work." I took the card and glanced at it. It had his name, his email, and a web address, www.lucasfaces.com. I put it in my pocket and thanked him. "It was nice to meet you, Lucas," I said. "The pleasure is mine," he said. "You have a beautiful face, by the way. Very expressive. You should be a model." I blushed and laughed. He was very flattering, but I didn't take him seriously. I was not a model, nor did I aspire to be one. I was a journalist, and I had more important things to do than pose for pictures. I said goodbye to him and continued on my way. I didn't think much of the encounter until later that night when I decided to check out his website. I typed in the web address and clicked enter. The site loaded, and I was greeted by a black screen with white letters that read, "Welcome to Lucas Faces, the ultimate collection of human beauty." I scrolled down and saw a gallery of photos arranged in rows and columns. Each photo was a close-up of a person's face, cropped to show only their eyes, nose, and mouth. There were hundreds of faces of different ages, genders, races, and expressions. Some were smiling, some were frowning, some were neutral. Some looked happy, some looked sad, some looked angry. Some looked familiar, some looked foreign, some looked exotic. I was amazed by the diversity and the quality of the photos. They were stunning, captivating, and artistic. I had to admit, Lucas was a talented photographer. He had a knack for capturing the essence and the emotion of his subjects. I clicked on one of the photos, and it enlarged on the screen. It was a face of a young woman with brown hair, green eyes, and freckles. She had a cute nose and a sweet smile. She looked friendly and cheerful. I liked her face. I looked at the bottom of the photo where there was a caption. It read, "Name Amy. Age 23. Location San Francisco. Date June 12, 2024. Status collected." I frowned. What did that mean? Collected? Collected by whom? For what purpose? I clicked on another photo and saw a face of a middle-aged man with gray hair, blue eyes, and a beard. He had a strong jaw and a serious expression. He looked authoritative and confident. I respected his face. The caption read, "Name Robert. Age 45. Location Los Angeles. Date May 29th, 2024. Status collected." I clicked on another photo and saw a face of a teenage girl with blonde hair, brown eyes, and braces. She had a cute dimple and a shy smile. She looked innocent and curious. I related to her face. The caption read, "Name Jessica. Age 16. Location Seattle. Date May 15th, 2024. Status collected." I clicked on another photo and saw a face of an old woman with white hair, brown eyes, and wrinkles. She had a kind smile and a gentle gaze. She looked wise and compassionate. I admired her face. The caption read, "Name Helen. Age 78. Location New York. Date May 1st, 2024. Status collected." I clicked on another photo and saw a face of a young man with black hair, brown eyes, and a scar. He had a piercing look and a smirk. He looked rebellious and dangerous. I feared his face. The caption read, "Name Carlos. Age 21. Location Miami. Date April 17th, 2024. Status collected." I clicked on another photo and saw a face of a child with red hair, blue eyes, and freckles. He had a cute nose and a playful smile. He looked happy and carefree. I loved his face. The caption read, "Name Tommy. Age 8. Location Chicago. Date April 3rd, 2024. Status collected." I clicked on another photo and saw a face of a woman with blonde hair, blue eyes, and a friendly smile. She had a beautiful face. A familiar face. A face that I recognized. It was my face. The caption read, "Name Rachel. Age 22. Location Berkeley. Date June 15th, 2024. Status pending." I gasped and dropped my laptop. I felt a cold sweat on my forehead and a chill down my spine. I realized what Lucas was doing. He was not just a photographer. He was a serial killer. And he was collecting faces. Literally. He was cutting off the faces of his victims and keeping them as trophies. He was documenting his crimes on his website for the world to see. And he was planning to do the same to me. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. I hoped it was not too late. I hoped I could stop him. I hoped I could save my face.
Part 2.
I waited for the operator to answer, but no one did. I looked at my phone and saw that there was no signal. I cursed and threw my phone on the bed. I was trapped in my apartment with no way to contact anyone. I was alone and I was scared. I got up and ran to the door. I tried to open it, but it was locked. I looked for the key, but I couldn't find it. I remembered that I had left it on the kitchen table, along with my books. I ran to the kitchen and saw the table. It was empty. There was no key, no books, no nothing. Someone had taken them. I realized that it was Lucas. He had been in my apartment while I was out. He had taken my key, my books, and my laptop. He had locked me in, and he had left me a message. A message that was displayed on my laptop screen, which was now on the floor. I picked up the laptop and read the message. It was in white letters on a black background. It said, "Hello, Rachel. I'm glad you liked my website. I'm sorry I had to take your things, but I needed them for my collection. You see, I don't just collect faces. I collect stories. Stories of people's lives, dreams, fears, and secrets. Stories that I find in their books, their phones, their computers, and their minds. Stories that I write down in my notebook and keep with their faces. Stories that make them unique and beautiful and human. Stories that make them mine. You have a very interesting story, Rachel. A story of a journalist who wanted to expose the truth but ended up becoming a victim of it. A story of a woman who was fascinated by serial killers but never imagined that she would meet one. A story of a person who had a beautiful face but soon would lose it. A story that I want to add to my collection. A story that I want to end. Don't worry, Rachel. It won't hurt much. I'll be gentle. I'll be quick. I'll be back soon. And then we'll be together. Forever. Love, Lucas." I screamed and dropped the laptop. I felt a surge of panic and anger. I couldn't believe what I was reading. I couldn't believe what he was planning to do. I couldn't believe that he was coming back. To kill me. To take my face. To take my story. I looked around the apartment, looking for a way out. I saw the windows, but they were too high and too small. I saw the fire escape, but it was too far and too rusty. I saw the bathroom, but it was too dark and too dirty. I saw the closet, but it was too cramped and too cluttered. I saw nothing that could help me. Nothing that could save me. Nothing that could stop him. I felt hopeless and helpless. I felt like giving up. I felt like crying. But then I remembered something. Something that I had learned in my journalism classes. Something that I had practiced in my projects. Something that I had used in my stories. I remembered how to write. I remembered how to write a story. A story that could captivate, persuade, and inspire. A story that could change the world. A story that could change my fate. I decided to write a story. A story that would be my last. A story that would be my legacy. A story that would be my weapon. I grabbed a pen and a paper from the drawer. I sat on the bed and started to write. I wrote with passion, with urgency, with courage. I wrote with everything I had. I wrote a story about Lucas. A story that exposed his crimes, his motives, his methods, and his identity. A story that revealed his secrets, his flaws, his weaknesses, and his fears. A story that showed his madness, his cruelty, his evil, and his humanity. I wrote a story that would shock, horrify, and disgust. A story that would inform, educate, and warn. A story that would inspire, empower, and liberate. I wrote a story that would be my testimony, my confession, my accusation, and my revenge. I wrote a story that would be the truth. I wrote a story that would be the end of him. I wrote a story that would be the end of me. I wrote a story that would be the end of us. I wrote a story that would be the end. I finished writing and put down the pen. I looked at the paper and read what I had written. I was proud of what I had done. I was proud of what I had said. I was proud of what I had been. I folded the paper and put it in my pocket. I hoped that someone would find it. I hoped that someone would read it. I hoped that someone would remember me. I heard a knock on the door. I knew it was him. He was back. He was here. He was ready. I got up and walked to the door. I opened it and saw him. He was smiling. He was holding a camera and a knife. He was ready. "Hello, Rachel," he said. "Are you ready?" I looked at him and smiled back. I was holding a paper and a pen. I was ready. "Hello, Lucas," I said. "Are you ready?" I stabbed him in the chest with the pen. He gasped and dropped the camera and the knife. He clutched his wound and fell to the floor. He looked at me with shock and pain. He looked at me with fear and hate. He looked at me with love and regret. He looked at me with his eyes, his nose, and his mouth. He looked at me with his face that I had seen, his face that I had known, his face that I had written, his face that I had taken. I took the paper from my pocket and unfolded it. I showed it to him and read it aloud. I read it with pride, with defiance, with courage. I read it with everything I had. I read him the story that I had written, the story that he had collected, the story that we had ended, the story that still gives me nightmares.
Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe for more similar horror stories.